Welcome to the Krypton Report, the only podcast where you can find that Kryptonian princess, Allura. I am your host, Tyler, the Superman of Blue, and with me, as always, the man of steel himself, the Superman of Red, Mr. James Cole. Welcome, James.
Yo, yo, yo. Good morning.
Good morning. So I've been fighting this cold. I got my handy dandy tea in this official Krypton Report mug.
Nice. And Allura is on one this morning.
Yeah. And just trying to feel better. So we're kind of we got some news to talk about, little bits, nothing grandiose, but just little things I've collected, and as well as we're gonna do a double episode to kind of catch up. But let's kick some things off. First of all, I don't know what I want to start with, but we'll start with this. We have this has kind of been the symbol of the upcoming Superman, the all-in Superman here.
Yeah, the all-in absolute Superman.
Yeah, I was trying to remember the word. I was like, absolute. And I'm interested. Some people are being negative. It's going to be a dark Superman. We'll kind of see, because it's supposed to be made with dark side energy. We know that from the story. The bat symbol is horrible.
Well, from what I saw, yes, it's absolute. It's made from dark side energy, like that universe, but there still has to be a balance in that universe. You know what I mean? So is it just a much darker, harsher world that this Superman is in, but he's still Superman? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's more like what we're thinking. I just don't. I think people hear dark, and it doesn't matter if it's dark side, dark energy, whatever. Like automatically, you have to have evil
Dark
Superman
fiends.
or something. You know what I mean? Like probably expecting Batman to chop people's heads off with that thing, because I saw that it's actually able to be used as some sort of axe
Hammer.
or weapon or something.
Yeah.
Hammer. Yeah. So
I like the
they've got some
symbol.
interesting ideas. Yeah, I love the symbol, and I actually do like the color, the blue around it, the dull blue like that.
This is what we talked about before. Like, it's the Superman symbol, but it's just slightly variant enough that it gives this its own identity. I'm not sure about the suit with the gold, how it is. We'll see, for boots and wrists.
Yeah, I wondered what that was around the boots and the forearms.
So we got that. That was released.
Yeah, the symbol, I like how it's red all the way over. It doesn't have that little part behind the back of the S on this side.
Yeah,
and it doesn't have the square or curvy round edges that make it. I think they did it that way to make it pop, to make it look more something. You know what I mean?
It looks a little similar to the New 52 style, but not enough. I'm cool with it. It's still the Superman symbol. It's not like, what is this? But all right, news-wise, what else we got here? Chugging along. Oh, this is just beautiful. This upcoming cover from Dan Mora, where we're going to have some sort of doomsday story written by Mark Waid. So I believe is written by Mark Waid. I think. I could be wrong. Just did an interview with Mark Waid. It's
Where's
on
Joshua Williamson, right?
Or yeah, something I can't remember, because it might be with that. I don't know. They're doing that shuffle.
It could be a change, a shuffle. But he's been writing with Mark Waid on the Absolute Power story. So everything's gonna kick off after Absolute Power is done.
So we have Superman here, and then we have Superwoman, who they've already told us will be Lois Lane. So we'll figure out how that works out. Because of course we need another superpowered figure, and part of the family. Because
it very much looks like a Supergirl Flash costume.
We did a whole we did a whole episode. We call it as DC All About Family, because I've been catching up reading the Green Arrow books, and how there's the Green Arrow family is even bigger, the Flash family is bigger, the Super family, the Bat family, everybody's got a family. But I just love Dan Moore's art, and this cover is gorgeous, and I'm interested to see Lois Lane with powers, because then Jania will love that.
Yeah, that
Oh,
cover is gorgeous. And the last time we saw Doomsday was in that story where he was in hell,
yeah,
where we
it
got
was.
Superman from hell, uh, blood,
Blood Rain, Blood Spawn,
Bloodwind, maybe
Bloodwind. Yeah, yeah, that sounds
Bloodwind
right.
could be. Yeah, but that was one of the last times we saw him. He was in one other story at one time since then, but
It's so hard when you
it
skip
was like
around
a
and
backup.
you're like reading current, then you're reading back, and then you're like, wait, what's
Yeah,
going on? So I
right.
get one of those things that we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot with that. Let's see. This looks awesome. I saw this is coming from Funko. I need this
Ooh,
for my Christmas collection.
absolutely. Match my Superman
Exactly.
Christmas Funko.
Like I have my Superman Christmas Funko out year round, and like I have my uh I was putting it away with my Christmas stuff, then pulling it back out, but I want
Right.
to get all the DC Funko Christmases and help display them throughout the house.
Oh
But I
yeah,
like to do it.
absolutely. The Funko that I got up there, I'm pretty sure is an ornament. So I think I'll be able to take it out of the box this year, and when the tree's up, it'll go up on the tree, and then when the tree comes down, it'll go back on the shelf, and that it will remain until next Christmas.
Oh, let's see here. It is. I'm on Amazon right now because God bless the internet. And I'm going to see releases December 11th. Pre-order Supergirl Funko right now. Yeah, place my order. Thank you. It'll probably get delayed and I'll get it by February.
There you go. That's
Um,
optimism for you.
that's what happens with everything. Uh, whatever happened to the 2 day shipping? Anyways, so we're gonna bring this up real quick. Todd Phillips talking about Joker 3.
That it will not be happening.
I just want to put that out. That's good. Like, not everything needs a trilogy, and just the movie's coming
Uh,
up.
it could have been one. It could have been a one-off, fantastic, movie. I mean, because yeah, it's a great movie. Um, but it is it. If you want a movie to put you in a sour place,
Yeah,
watch
yeah,
The Joker. But it's a great movie.
yeah. It's a good
So
movie. Just don't
if
go
the
back
second
there.
one if the second one is even pretty damn good, like it would it would probably be an awesome set of movies. Like it could have stood as one, and I'm just hoping two has enough of its own charm. And if they're like,
Yeah,
that's all I got for this, and that's how it ends. Like, sure,
better
perfect,
go off
perfect.
on top than you know.
It was the
A,
first R-rated movie to cross 1 billion. I mean, come on, like
it's crazy.
it did all it needed to do. So, like I said, if we get a pretty darn good sequel out of it, like I don't expect it to keep rolling. It's not a slasher.
Yeah, yeah. Please don't.
I
Uh, keeping with
mean,
the
Joker
movie
is a
thing,
killer, but it is not a slasher franchise.
that'd be interesting. But our first look at Jimmy Olsen, official Jimmy Olsen. There, James Gunn released that, so just thought we'd throw out there. The other day was Jimmy Olsen's like appearance anniversary day.
I
So
think the first time I saw him was on Santa Clarita Diet, and I think back then I was like, he would make a great Jimmy Olsen.
I think the first time I saw him was on when they did the vacation like sequel reboot thing where Ed Helms was supposed to be the older Rusty.
Right,
And the funniest part in that whole movie, the funniest part in that movie is so subtle to me. It's when he's on the iPad flipping through family photos and he's talking about his different vacations. And one of the things being that Rusty's always played by a different actor in
right.
every vacation movie. So as he's talking about all of his vacations, he's flipping through, you see the different actors as Rusty and stuff. And he's talking about there I am, doing this and there I am this and stuff.
That's hilarious.
And then if you haven't heard the infamous Batman popcorn bucket that came out like on a Wednesday and like
35, but that is awesome.
yeah, that's why I would actually pay for it to go get that thing. It's just there's no AMC close. My friend who lives close to one's actually sick with COVID, so Um, even the cup with the bat, like I would drop the cheddar for those. And I just kind of wish like they just had a screening of the Batman. And I was like, why'd they put it back in theater now? Is that a Batman Day, which is coming up here in September? So we do
Well,
want to make,
I mean,
you know,
yeah. I mean, they could spread them out a little bit.
because it is for Batman's 85th anniversary.
Right.
This is September. This is our first recording for September. We will have at least 3 Batman Day specials. We're planning 4. One will be for our Patreon, and then 3 will be YouTube exclusives. They will be dropping hopefully if we can keep the scheduling, because people on Saturdays, building up to Batman Day. So we like to celebrate the Dark Knight. There's always great stuff with Batman. He's like my number 2. He's a great character. I'm not against Batman just because I love Superman. So people calm down. Some people think you have to pick one or the other. That's not cool. And hopefully there's going to be, we're hoping to go see Batman Forever in theaters. They're saying it's coming the 20th, which is weird that they're putting it back in theaters on a Friday instead of on the Saturday, which is Batman Day, for AMC. And they're putting Mask of the Phantasm, Batman 89, and Batman Forever. Well, we just said we'll do Batman Forever because 2 years ago, Brian Solomon and I did Batman Returns, and Mask of the Phantasm. We did a triple feature in theaters.
Nice.
So I'm like, we just got to keep chugging along. Last year was the Nolans back in theaters, and they sold out fast for tickets for those. So me and Brian,
those are great big screen movies.
Yeah, so Brian and I just did the trilogy here at the house, and then we ran a poll, and it looks like our poll results are in. That James and I are going to have to figure it out to do the series finale of Superman and Lois as a live, like commentary watch along. So we'll have to figure that out when it comes
before the season premiere.
No, I'm saying like the finale of the season 4. Like,
okay.
So like,
gotcha.
Since it hits on, it's gonna what? Because they moved the date for Superman and Lois. That was something I wanted to add. It's now been moved to October 7th. So I had to change some of our shifts around. I had to shuffle some stuff because I had everything mapped out based on when they told us, things were dropping. And I thought I had it saved in here. Maybe I didn't. But yeah, the 2-hour premiere. And then it's going to be, October 7th is, I think, a Tuesday. Yeah, no, it's a Monday. And then I think it's going to air on Tuesdays or something like that. So we're going to figure it out as we go along on this final ride of Superman and Lois. It's going to be a good run. The other thing, I couldn't get the picture to come up for some reason, but McFarlane reissued the Ben Affleck Batman figure from The Flash, but they painted it with the blue grayscale that they ended up kind of trying to color it to in the movie compared to how we know when they filmed it, it was when it was filmed, it was black and gray, and then they tried to color it in post to make it blue. But they sit out, and I was like, why? Like, I'm not rebuying the Flash. That was like the worst Batman figure ever, but yet they're trying to sell it again.
No, they're like, bring them back in. They're not selling. Let's repaint them.
Yeah, and put it back out there
so it looks more. I mean, it looks better.
Yeah, it looks better
with the color on it, the way the color pops in on the figure. But yeah, it still has this weird strapped-on armored suit. It looks
it looks like they were like, Ben just put a jumpsuit on them, put some armor over it to be comfortable, and threw on the bat cowl.
Yeah, the figure looks better than it did in the movie.
Yeah,
I'll give it that. But oh god.
So that is our news. Penguin, is coming up soon. We'll talk about that. We'll talk more about things as we get closer. But
They did
talking about getting.
release the episode times and I believe the titles of the first 4 episodes.
Yeah, I
I
saw
don't
that. I just
have them. The first one is like an hour and 4 minutes, and then the rest are like 58, 59 minutes.
yeah, I wanted to, I saw that and I forgot to keep that for our news. I try to keep up on everything sometimes. It
Yeah.
just
It's
but
probably
speaking of
back in our chat somewhere, screenshot.
things coming up in 10 in 11 days, we will have the first episode of the Gore Report hosted by James Cole. This I was featured on here. It is on our Patreon, our $1 Patreon. You will get exclusive episodes of the Gore Report, special requel bonuses. I also do requel on my uh, YouTube channel, my personal YouTube channel, and you'll also get the Supernatural Report. We've gotten better at doing that. You get an episode a month, and you'll also get bonus content from here at Krypton Report. So $1 helps us keep podcasting going. We're not trying to take all your money, so just help us out there. But now,
Oh yeah, $1 Patreon. I mean, $1 Patreon, you get the Gore Report, you get Supernatural Report, Requel. You've got
our
something there with
commentaries and
our
whatever
movie
ever.
commentaries.
And we try to drop specials. Like Jania and I have been going through the Star Wars movies. We were doing one a month. We kind of missed August because of just family, personal reasons.
Right.
Everything was off. But we are going one a month doing commentaries on the Star Wars movies. Chania loves Star Wars, but we're going to finish out the all 9 this year. And then James and I, just for fun, did a bonus episode we put on Patreon of talking about Deadpool and Wolverine, along with Alien Romulus.
Yeah, 2
So
movies that we both saw in the theater. I only get to go see certain movies in the theater because there's so many people. We got to kind of take a
yeah,
couple individuals to their own movies, things like that. So, I got to be picky. And yeah, I saw Deadpool and Alien Romulus this year. And yeah, we got to talk about those. That was really fun.
and Janine and I just did a special on The Crow. So that was fun. But now we're going to shift over and continue our conversations about Superboy. And we're going to talk about season 1, episode 7, The Beast and the Beauty. It was released Saturday, November 19th, 1988. A Superboy impersonator is robbing banks and jewelry stores to get $1 million so he can marry Florida's beauty queen. Take it away, James.
Man, that simplifies it right there. That's what it's about. It's got one of your favorite tropes in Superman where he's getting arrested and he voluntarily goes with the authorities. So he goes to the police department, he gets his fingerprints done. Um, he calls um, why am I blanking on the friend's name?
TJ?
TJ, there we go. I knew there was a J in there. For some reason, I was thinking it started first. Kept going
It's all
back to
good.
Jimmy though, so that's why.
That's what Solomon calls him. Calls him Jimmy, or discount Jimmy.
He is. I mean, that's exactly what he is. I don't know about discount Jimmy, but I mean, he's Jimmy.
It's just
Calls him to bail him out of jail.
it's one of those sayings that I don't know. My friend and I came up with. We were watching, doing a commentary, and it was like you could tell they wanted this other actor, but they couldn't get that actor, so they got this person to almost be like, "Hey, just be this person." And it was like, yeah, it's like they couldn't afford. I think it was like Paul Rudd, and we were like, they couldn't afford Paul Rudd, so they got this guy, discount Paul Rudd. So then it became this ongoing joke and other things like
everybody's discount something. I mean, heck, people on the internet they're still calling David Cornsquit discount Henry Cavill. So
those people can. I've enjoyed the little bit of things I've seen David in.
Yeah, I've
Speaking of
only seen
which,
some.
Pearl is on Netflix, and David plays a small role in that. He's got another thing on Apple TV. There was something he was in on Hulu I haven't watched yet because it looks good. It's called Greatest Hits, but it deals with death of a loved one and stuff, and I just wasn't really in the mood for that. So
I just saw a thing where he was in what was it, like 2012's Hairspray?
yeah, but I think was that I saw that too, and I was like, What was that? Was that like a live play performance?
I've never seen it, the movie or anything, so I was like, I don't know.
I
Yeah, was it a play or something?
I
I mean, I know they perform Hairspray on
the
stage, you
but the
know.
2012 um I think it was just on stage. Because I know there's the film that has Zac Efron, which was there's the original film, which is weird as heck. Um uh
And say, isn't that the one with John Travolta as a woman
yep.
or something?
Yeah, because that was
Yeah.
like an ongoing thing. But yeah, he was in the 2012. So I guess it was just a stage play production or something. So
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
which is cool. Yeah, it's cool. Like versatile.
Hugh Jackman does stage all the time.
Yeah, nobody can argue against Hugh Jackman. Okay, we know.
Yeah.
We talked about that. He's like the one guy that you can't be mad at.
No, actors who really love their craft end up doing a lot of stage work. You know, uh, it's a much different kind of challenging acting than doing it in front of a camera and having to do it over and over and over again until you get it right. When you're
Yeah.
on stage, you have to do it how you got to do it, and you have to roll with anything that mistakes or changes. Like it's a whole different beast.
So, last thing, we're back to
Um,
Superboy. But yeah,
yeah. Back to Superboy. I mean, heck, we've had Superboy impersonators robbing things since the Fleischers.
yeah. I mean,
You know,
it's just a
so
trope. It's just
yeah, so it's cool. You know, it was funny. Um, to see it being used as you said, if I made $1 million, you'd marry me. So he stole $1 million.
exactly. You know,
She said I'd never marry you if you had all the money in the world.
um, that's
Um,
like in Dumb and Dumber. So you're saying there's a chance?
right, absolutely.
Interesting
Uh,
thing about this episode was is it was directed by Jackie Cooper.
oh
Jackie
wow,
Cooper, Perry White from
yeah, Perry White, yep,
Superman 2, Superman 3, and Quest for Peace, the re-film series.
that's awesome.
But yeah,
And you
it was
know,
a
it
it
was
was a
the
nice
'80s.
quirky episode. Yeah,
Yeah, that hair, those beauty pageant girls with that hair. That first girl, her hair, was out to here. It was like, and then the girl who won, your Miss Florida, the blonde there who got kidnapped. So he had to have flown her in. He had to have flown her back because her hair went from, kind of big, long '80s hair to man, that sucker was like waved out like. Poof. We had a good laugh about that one.
I mean, you know that the actress who played the character, Alana Shaw, I was looking at some of her stuff. She did Double Impact with Jean Claude Van Damme. She did some episodes of Miami Vice. The Drew Carey Show was like one of her last things in 2000. This was like her first acting thing,
Hmm.
but she didn't do a whole lot. Um,
Oh, I'd seen Double Impact.
yeah, so did I years ago. Um, but it's like she has that classic 80s girl look
Yeah.
to her.
The funniest bit of this episode, in my opinion, or the best bit of this episode really, was when Clark comes back at the end and he walks up and he goes down the wrong row, and so then he has to walk backwards in front of everybody, like intentionally, like being a doofus, but also like it worked.
Yeah.
Like he went to the wrong row. I was like, "Are you kidding?" Like that's funny. Then he goes back to the next row, and then he falls on the lady. And he's like, "I'm so sorry," and she just gives him this look, and she's like, "Anytime." And he just like bashfully goes like, "Okay." I said it a little cynically there. He does it more bashfully, and he turns over to TJ and says, "What I miss." He says everything.
TJ's like, Clark,
Yeah,
buddy Clark. Oh, gee golly.
you missed everything as usual.
As usual, Clark, where were you?
Yep.
He's like, you know,
Also, Tyler had gotten his. I also have
yeah,
mine now.
we're,
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna, I, hopefully getting to do some panels and stuff at some comic conventions. We're gonna try to help raise more awareness and money for the Siegel and Schuster tribute plaza that they're working on, being part of the Siegel and Schuster Society, because you got to honor the legacy of the character. So, but yeah, that was Superboy. Um, I got to watch. I watched it, but I was like in and out coughing, and I've been getting over being sick. So, of course, the kids are bothering me because like, Daddy, are you okay? Do you need something? I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah.
That episode of Superboy was one of the funner type episodes, where it's corny and campy, but you had a good time rolling with it, all the way to the end.
James is like rolling
So,
with the
and
homies.
speaking of, because we didn't really speak of Lana in this episode, but interesting thing after watching that the other night, um, it just popped into my head, and we started watching Sequest DSV
Oh,
on Peacock, and Stacy is in Sequest DSV. I was like, oh yeah,
that's that's
it
that's funny. Just
was an
because,
awesome little crossover.
um, it's funny just because, what do you call it?
I was
That
say, I know
time,
that's what you guys had to like
fight my
figure out
mom.
what's
Yeah,
yeah what you were gonna
she
watch, Sequest or Lois
no,
and Clark.
she was like, "I'm gonna watch Sequest," and I was like, "No." And then Sequest got canceled, so that kind of fixed itself.
Right.
But all right, now we're gonna move on to we're gonna close out our Action Comics run with the New 52 Actions written by Grant Morrison. Now we're gonna try to talk about this as best we can because we
It's
have
2 volumes.
Volume 2, Bulletproof, and Clark Kent is dead. When grave circumstances cause Superman to leave behind his alter ego, an unimpeded Man of Steel must face his deadliest foe to date, Nimrod the Hunter. Metropolis' newest threat has killed everything he's ever tracked, but he's never killed an alien. Will the red and blue Kryptonian be first? Legendary writer Grant Morrison continues his best-selling, critical acclaimed run on Superman Action Comics. Um, this is Superman Action Comics number 9 through 12, number 0, and annual number 1. It's all in the trade. Um, I made a statement in our chat, and I'm going to say it here, and people can argue with me, and that's fine. I think Grant Morrison is a great writer. I think sometimes he's a little too over the top that you can get lost in his stories. Because I got recently to a chance to interview for the third time Mark Wade for Capes and Lunatics with our buddy Phil. That is the live stream is on our YouTube and our Facebook. Of course, the audio is on Capes and Lunatics podcast. And I made the comment to Brian, our buddy Brian from Gravely Amusing, that I think Mark Wade's a better writer than Grant Morrison. And those might be fighting words, but yeah, that's just the truth, people. I just think that at times Grant makes great stories, but sometimes I get lost, and I feel like I come away um, having experienced a Mark Wade story much better. But and there's Sayla with her new Scooby Doo shirt, rocking it. You want to say hi? Say hi to James.
Hi, James.
Hello.
Yeah.
Go. I'll get a music.
You're good. You're good, Supergirl Sayla. But all right, so I brought this up to kind of share with everybody because the first story out of this is a what'd you say, Elseworld story? It's the Calvin Ellis.
A multiversal story. I
Yeah,
mean,
there we go.
Elseworlds is what you would call it, I guess, because it's a different Earth. But
Yeah. And I it's weird because like I like this, but it was just kind of weird, because you're reading action, unless we talked about how like sometimes in the collections you can get lost, but you're reading this story and you're like, oh, what is this? The Curse of Superman. So what did you think of this, James?
Well, honestly, reading them all back to back. So I read through this run before, Grant Morrison's action run, and I read through it before, and I'm pretty sure I read through it issue by issue on the DC Universe app when it first started. So I read through this story, but however long it would take to get through all of these issues in order, it jumps around a lot. So actually getting to read this run as 1, 2, and 3 volumes back to back, I really got to piece the story together better. So yeah, the we do have this Elseworld story with Calvin Ellis here, and he meets a Lois and a Clark from another world and a dead burnt body of Jimmy. And we get this basically a Tulpa version of the Superman.
Yeah.
A thought of a Superman brought to life, so intense that it's been brought to life. And that's what comes from their world. And Calvin Ellis, who is President Ellis on this earth, and he's also Superman. He has his identity a secret. Brainiac is his computer, his control system that tells him everything going on Earth, as well as kind of plays robotic versions of himself to also have President Ellis present while Superman is present.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very interesting. We got to see some of the Justice League on his Earth, which was really cool. I mean, honestly, for just it ended up being a one-off story where, part of it comes back.
Yeah, part of it
comes back later. It was interesting. I like Calvin Ellis, I like different versions of Superman. I've always been I've always leaned into the Elseworld stories, self-contained stories, things like that, something that's not ongoing, that different people pick up and take and go with and take in different directions and stuff. I still love comics and everything, but I do love Elseworld story written by somebody that has a single story that has a beginning, middle, and an end.
Because you get the end, and that's
Yeah.
sometimes the problem that we have with comics. They're continuous. We talked about this a little bit, like crossovers, they don't stick the landing all the time. Sometimes it just feels like a little flat because they can't. All right.
Well, that was also something that you guys talked about with Mark.
Yeah.
About crossovers in the past, like before you couldn't opt out. Now, if your story can fit in and you want to work together and within the story, it's kind of more of a let's opt in, let's build a story together, as opposed to kind of like just mandated, you have to put this in your story, as it were. So you should be able to tell better crossover type stories these days with that mindset.
So I feel like we have the Calvin Ellis story, and it is a character that I wouldn't mind like a mini series of like Calvin Ellis or Val Zod, these alternate Supermans. And like, we talked about the African American Superman character. I don't know if it's so weird to say because technically Val Zod's not African American Superman because he's like not from Africa.
Yeah, right.
But so I don't know how to properly say that, but anyways, they're good characters that just haven't really got the stories they deserve to really flesh out who they are. Because like Val Zod pops up here and there.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't mind like a 6-12 issue run of like a Calvin Ellis Superman story, or
and Val Zod didn't show up until later in the Earth 2 story.
Yeah, when it was the Earth 2 Society more, I think.
He was more in that. He showed up toward the end of Earth 2 when Earth 2 was being destroyed and devoured by Apocalypse. Yeah, but he was the Superman going into society and stuff like that.
So I don't know, their characters I think are interesting that we could explore.
For sure. The last time I really remember seeing Calvin Ellis was it Justice League Incarnate, I believe, where they were going after a Darkseid
That
Uh,
feels right.
yeah, and Darkseid was he was trying to do something at the moment. It's been a while since I read the Justice League Incarnate book, but there was something about him and the energy that he had come in that he was using, or I can't remember
Yeah,
exactly. So, but
exactly.
that might be the last one of the last times we've seen Darkseid as well. I believe, thinking on everything that's happened, that might have been one of the last times we've seen Darkseid as well. So, is Absolute Power and All In coming forward going to have anything to do with Justice League Incarnate? Are we going to get
I mean,
something built off of that? I'm just spitballing here, just curious.
so this is like I thought about not doing this issue by issue type thing, but the way that this book works, it kind of hits there. But the next issue is called Bulletproof, and that's the one where we get um, the hunter who's coming after Clark Kent. It starts off where he's at the Kent family farm. He's talking to the farmer who's now living there with his family. And it's great because the farmer actually calls Clark and gives him a heads up. We see this really great shot of Clark rushing, and he grabs one of his t-shirts out of his locker, his Superman t-shirts. And it's interesting because now all of a sudden he's got his t-shirt back. And it's a red t-shirt.
And that's what I mean by this story being put together. I'm sure it took me longer to read it issue by issue when I did the first run, um, because I was probably trying to read too much, too many books. But um, got all
The
excited with all these books at my fingertips on the app.
so
But the things like in this story, so he's back in the t-shirt. This book, as we're gonna see, Vindictivix is attacking Clark at different times in his life.
okay,
So
so
the
that's the
entire
reason.
story is built up with all of these stories that take place from the time he's younger to the time he's in the future, like working with the Legion and stuff.
So that is why we wanted to kind of try to do the Grant Morrison stuff together, because it's one story of fifth dimensional, and
Yeah.
years about, oh, how old Solomon? He's not. So about 10, 11 years ago, probably about 11 years ago, I listened to, back when Fat Man on Batman was a thing, and it was great. An interview with Grant Morrison. Kevin Smith interviewed Grant Morrison, and he described the best way he talked about how fifth dimensional reality works is take a piece of paper, draw a line, pretend that that line is time, and then take your fingers, and put them on the line. You're the fifth dimension interacting, and when you're hitting that line, but you're hitting it at different points all at the same time. So that's kind of how the fifth dimension works. So Vindictive, like, yeah, what James said, is attacking Clark, but it's throughout time all at the same time. And all these stories are connected in that way. And that's why it gets really confusing at times, because you have this like, oh, why is he back in the t-shirt? And then you turn the page and there he is in the full costume, giving this um uh, hamster to talking to the Justice League. And then we kind of go back to Clark with Lois and Jimmy, and he's being hunted. And there's it really is good but confusing at the same time, and especially when we get into the next volume. That's why I kind of wanted to kind of do them together.
Yeah, but like, so on this page in particular, you get back, he's getting the t-shirts out of his locker. So throughout this story, we see him at different times wearing different t-shirts. Sometimes he has a white t-shirt, sometimes he has a red t-shirt. He mostly wears blue. And
he's not
I
wearing
wasn't
jeans.
sure why.
He's wearing like gray pants right
Yeah,
here.
and I wasn't sure why that was happening. Like I was before. I think I was thinking like, did they really just like mess up the inking that bad or whatnot? But
Mhm.
there is a backup story later on, and I forget if it's in volume 2. I think it is in volume 2.
Yeah.
Where and you see it in another story where he goes in and he asks for a t-shirt. He has to have his t-shirts printed. And then you get this story. So you see that it's the same guy, and he gives the story of why he has red, white, and blue t-shirts. And I think it works really, and I think it actually works really great, and showing that people are claiming to be the place that got the original shirt, but that
Yep.
was the guy who actually did print the original shirts. You know
It,
what I mean?
yeah,
And I love that. And it's pieced together throughout the story through like panels and little lines of dialogue.
it's easier to read it like this. Like, I read this more in trade than I did individual issues as they were coming out. And it's a lot easier to read it this way because you're looking for clues. And you're trying to piece it together and you can flip through. Then I could imagine reading this month to month when it came out. All right. So, like I said, we're back. There's this reports that Clark's seeing about things that have happened. He's like, and it can't be Superman because that was before Superman. Um, and they're working on and we get this appearance of this person at a semi truck. And my computer froze. And then we get a bomber. And this is where we have Clark Kent rushing to stop this bomber outside the Daily Star. My computer froze. Dang it. I need my iPad. But basically, it goes off. The hunter shows up and finds out that Clark Kent is dead. He died in front of the Daily Star. And now Clark is just Superman because he shows up in the blue t-shirt with jeans on again to stop the hunter who was hunting him. It's almost like they wanted to do a Kraven the Hunter story. And then of course we have Mrs. Nixley, his landlord. And then we have the hunter guy is in like an iron mask. And we have this guy with, some crazy dark hair who that keeps appearing throughout the story in different places. And if you're reading this, you'll see it.
Short guy. Yeah, short guy with glasses, dark hair and glasses.
I think that's part of what makes this Action Comics run unique, is because of how Morrison wrote it. And at the same time, I would have liked to have had maybe a little bit longer of just t-shirt wearing Superman Clark before he got his costume.
Well, yeah, he got his costume in the first trade. Then with this continuing storyline hitting at different points in time, we just kind of go back to it.
I think it would have been really interesting to have gotten more of this early Superman story. But then we get these metallics. We're seeing, like I said, Superman here, young Superman. I love this look here. The blue t-shirt, the jeans cuffed up, and like Converse, because that was basically me going to work every day. So I was like cosplaying every day to work. Superman t-shirt, jeans, and Converse. Got it.
He's like, yeah, I'm going to work. I get to wear whatever I want, and I get to go to work in cosplay, but it looks like just regular clothes.
Yeah, and that's how I'm going to send Solomon to school for Halloween because their school does not allow them to wear costumes. So every year I kind of find a way around it. Kind of like last year he wore black pants, like gym pants, and a Venom t-shirt that was the the white symbol, and then he has a like toboggan that face mask you can pull over that's Venom's, so like he could pull it over if it was cold out. And I'm like, there you go, there's your costume.
Nice.
You see Clark stop these machines that are eating the metal of this apartment, and then he rebuilds like the apartments, but then like he builds them back too nice that now the property value's gone up. And they're like, I'm looking for the line. You have any idea what these homes will be worth now? And he's like, "What? I'm sorry, I can't," and takes off. And he's just trying to do good, and my computer keeps freezing as I'm trying to go through this. But now he's a fireman in secret identity because Clark Kent's dead, and he's still trying to find a way to help people.
Yep. So he works as Johnny Clark from
And
the Keystone Fire Department.
and that's one thing about this is like they downplay the importance, I think, of the Kents and Clark as a person in these early New 52 Supermans, period. We see him talking with Batman, which is kind of neat, just them two hanging out.
They do kind of discuss, though, throughout this how they give this idea of him being able to take on this other persona, like being Johnny Clark. But they kind of put the importance of him being Clark Kent, of him being a reporter, and him being who he's always been growing up, not trying to always hide. They do kind of lean on that. They steer, they go away from it a little bit, give you an interesting idea, but they really pull it back to like this idea, you being you is important.
It is. It's interesting because he's trying to get rid of the Clark Kent, persona and stuff. But yet he still finds a way to be someone other than Superman. Now we get a thing with Lois is niece. So Susie, is this Lucy's daughter? Do we ever get confirmation? With her eyes go black, like she's seeing the stars. That's important as that comes back. See, Jamie, this isn't a coughing contest, okay? I'm the sick one. But then we jump to where we got Superman in space, and I don't know. I think sometimes in books like this, the non-linear nature throws me compared to like in a film, I follow it better.
Right.
He's up in space here, and I need to go grab my iPad in a minute. Hold on, I'm gonna grab my iPad.
We're still paused.
We're back. I had to go get my iPad because the computer was. But we have this guy show up in Metropolis, and I'm looking for his name, because he's the one that supposedly was a pre-Superman they talked about, and he comes for what's her face, the niece, and we still have these
Susie.
Metalex. Is that how are you pronouncing it? Metalex?
Metalex.
Metalex. Because like there's on the next panel we have Johnny Clark here who's like, no, and there's Metalex. So, and I'm looking for this dude's name. I cannot remember it. Why can't I remember it? He talks about his history about Neo-Sapiens born 100,000 years ahead of our time to prepare the way to inherit the earth.
Yeah. He calls himself a Cometeer. That's his crew. That's the people he runs with.
Yeah.
Go ahead and keep going on the story. I will.
About saying all this
comes later appearance here
because all this comes back later, and then that issue ends with him taking. It says, "Come, child," and he's taking Susie, and then
he called him Adam.
And the next
Adam. I don't have his last name, but he called him Adam.
The next part is we see Clark leaving the farm, the Daily Planet, meeting the team. But the top one is looks like Jonathan and Clark out on the farm. He's wearing his cape. It's Superman, a golden age of heroes. Him with Lois dying, like all this. And then all of a sudden he looks over and sees Lois at the windshield. He says, "Hold on, don't die. Don't die, Lois. I'm on my way." And the return of the forgotten is the issue. And basically, Susie is connecting with this dude, and he tells his story about how he lands and was a baby, and he's basically like you said, Adam, like a proto. He was born, I guess. Even though we see like the rocket, it's weird because like we see like his energy land in the back, but yet while this lady's giving birth, and then he has the eyes and talks about his power growing up. How I try to help people, but your consciousness can't separate from your body like mine can. Your hardware, your software is still all the same thing. I'm so sorry. I can only save you in my memory, Mom, but don't be scared. The Black Ghosts, the Kansas Strongman sightings. It was you, Adam Blake, the first Superman, the one no one remembers. What happened to you? And then we have like the over-religious father kicking him out. And then, these alien things showing up.
Yeah. The Ort kind.
Yeah. And then somehow Johnny Clark's helmet is found, and Johnny Clark was killed he was vaporized. So there goes Johnny Clark. So now Adam and Superman battle. And then we have Susie on Superman's side because Adam hurt Aunt Lois. But the coolest part of this is when Superman takes Lois to the hospital for surgery, and they're like, I'm afraid she has serious internal injuries. The operation could take hours. That's more time than she has. I understand, doctor. Leave this to me. Where's the library? And then we see him in the library. He comes back. I've just read every medical tech published. It's now or never. The x-rays are right here, Superman. I'm fine, Dr. Sloan. I have natural x-ray vision. Scalpel? I won't need one of those either. My thumbnail is harder than a diamond. All I need is your expert guidance. Stop the internal bleeding. Reinflate her lung. Vaporize the embedded metal fragment. Clean the wound. And then they're watching like, this is unbelievable. 10 years of medical training in 5 minutes. Incredibly. There's barely a scar. Sealed and cauterized. Safe, Lois Lane.
Yeah.
And then we find out that the Keystone Fire Department only had one Johnny Clark on their team, and according to this, he died in a blaze 3 years ago. And then Batman delivers Clark a thumb drive because thumb drives are awesome. And then we're back to Mrs.
And it's a personalized thumb drive.
And then we have Miss Nixley again. And he's trying to say, Superman saved me, but I pretended to be dead. And she's like, no one will ever believe that. Your friends will have grieved in vain, then they'll have forgiven you. And this is where we start to learn of who she really is. And it's not revealed right here, but basically everything you ever loved is so much danger. There's a chance there's a chance. The jaws of the Lord Vindex have closed around you, but there's still hope. It's really easier if I show you.
Yeah, she tells him her name, Nixley Gispitolins.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. And he's called her Miss Nixley. And so this was before we had Nixley on Supergirl. But I think it's a similar character from the fifth dimension.
Yeah, it's basically kind of is the same character as we.
Is this the character that Mr. Mixospitalik has in Superman the animated series? Is that a version of Nixley? You think?
I think so.
That's funny. I think just because we're watching the Superman animated series, it had struck a chord because she, in this story, she's Mixospitalik's lover from the fifth dimension, from Zerf.
I'm trying to, what do you call it? The next issue is Superman Zero, which is a great. I love the art, and this is where like we see him getting the T-shirt made. He the Daily Star. We see him and Jimmy, together. And it's really like his intro, and this is where he gets knocked down and he loses his cape because a boy takes it. It's the boy who stole Superman's cape. And it's a great story. We see Jimmy struggling to get a good picture. We see the boys wearing the cape. And he goes and he punches his abusive, I guess it's his mom's abusive boyfriend. But because he punches with the cape, it makes his power much more stronger. We do get a little mystic Mr. Plex, like a poster hanging up. It's kind of hidden in the background. But the big thing is we have the two boys trying to escape. It's him and his brother, and they have the cape, and the boyfriend's coming after them. And I believe it's the boyfriend. They never quite say if it's the dad or the boyfriend. And we have this thing, the train's coming. And he's going to make the one little boy watch his older brother get hit by a train. And the kid is wrapped in the cape saying, "Nothing can hurt you." And then the train's coming, and then boom, there's Clark as Superman, stops the train. And the boy says, "I only borrowed it," and gives him back his cape. And he says, "That bully won't bother you again. I'll make sure of that." And he says, "What does the S stand for?" And we get like a couple panels and stuff, and then we get Lois saying Superman, and Jimmy got a good picture for the paper of him. So
yeah, stories like that really give me a golden age feel.
I love them.
Yeah,
I love when we get those stories back. Then we get the Executive Power short story, and that's more back with Calvin Ellis. And it's only for a couple of pages. That's weird. And then we go to
this is the trade. This is what I was talking about because the first volume you read issue to issue.
Yeah.
And so I think you got all the backups
with
each issue. And in the trade, you get all the backups put together after the main chunk of Grant Morrison's story. These are all written by Shali Fish,
which are great.
And they're all really good, I think. At least most of them are.
It's just, and then we get the one that I like is the next one, the Absent Friend.
Well, this is I don't think we really got into it. This is the Absent Power. It's or Executive Power, and it's a Calvin Ellis backup story from early on, and him being the president, him talking with Nubia, the Queen of the Amazons on that Earth, long before she was Queen of the Amazons on Earth Prime.
It's about the conflict of him being both Superman and the president.
Yeah, and disarming nuclear armaments from other countries, as Superman also being president.
Yeah, so that's
a really good story.
And then the next one is where we see Jimmy and Clark, a little bit about their friendship when they first started, and it's called Absent Friend. It's as they're grieving Clark and talking about it and how they're all going through the process of knowing Clark and him being dead, and Lois, going through the first time she met Clark and how he responded to disasters and going to help people, and he made me better. And there's a very interesting, just as we go through this, about where Lois and Clark are as people. And then we see Clark standing on top of the building adjacent, and he's wearing the t-shirt and jeans. I wish he could have been here, period. I wish he could have been here to see it. I'm sure Clark wishes he could be here with us too.
And they were at Swan's Tavern.
Yeah, it's awesome.
An homage to Kurt Swan.
So then the next backup is the clothes encounter, which is the story about two guys going to Metro Copy and Print, the home of the original Superman t-shirt. And this is where you get the story you were talking about, where this kid walks in, wants this symbol, wants it on T-shirts. And he says, "Can I get 50 by the end of the week?" "Oh, that could be a problem. I don't think I have that many in blue in stock. How about if we make it, say, 30 blue and the rest red and white?" He's like, "Red, white, and blue? I guess that could work." And then two people try to come in and like rob the shop. The guy shoots the gun off right into Hoodie Clark, and then Clark throws him against um, throws the guy.
He throws him 30 feet against the wall, just like Clark does.
I'll say pulls a Smallville. The shop owner is like, "Well, I don't know how to thank you," and Clark says, "No need, just help someone else when they need it. Like pay it forward, huh? In fact, I know what I can do right now. I'll give you 10% off," because now we're back into the modern time, and these guys are like trying to buy the shirt, and then the one guy talks him out of it, his friend out of it, and they walk outside, and he's like, "Do you really buy that story?" Basically, and then we see other places that say that they sell the original Superman shirt.
Yeah. I just feel like they give you this story and give you that ironic twist that everybody else is trying to do it, but I feel like the different colors of the shirts, the T-shirts, things like that. I wonder if
yeah.
this isn't the backup to that issue. You know what I mean?
Oh, that would be interesting. Yeah.
That it's ironic that it's everybody's trying to sell the T-shirts, but this guy is the guy. He has the story and everything. It was
Yeah.
different artists, so the person looks different flipping through the pages one right after the other.
Yeah.
But um, but I feel like they give you this story as like this is the original guy, even though everybody else is trying to make money off of it. I
Yeah.
feel like this is where he got his shirts printed.
I agree.
You know,
Because it just makes more sense, and it's fun that way.
yeah, exactly.
And then the next story is like where we learn about a reporter, scientist, sorry, who went exploring about the original Adam and how he ended up meeting him and the origins of species.
But then this is kind of the story of Eric Drecken, who
Yes.
is one of the people who Vindictivix enlists to do everything to go after Superman. And I didn't even pick that up until I literally saw it on the page. Like, this is the scientist who we get later on in volume 3.
Yes. And then the next issue is kind of like, where is it? He interacts with Dr. Irons, but Mr. Ramsey, why do you hate Superman? We have and he basically, this guy, Mr. Ramsey here. Oh man, my thing just reset. Why does it do that when I'm going through this? He basically gets bestowed with kryptonite powers.
Yeah, once in a while my app will do that. So yeah, he's K-Man. This guy was actually a guy that Clark, I think in the very early issues in volume 1, he threw him out the window for beating his wife or
Yep.
girlfriend. And he threw him out the window, and he broke his legs hitting the water. So he walks with a cane. So he takes up this opportunity to be infused with the kryptonite um, from the engine, or at least a piece of kryptonite from the engine of Superman's ship, and he infuses him with the kryptonite radiation in an attempt to make him a kryptonite weapon against Superman. And this is before what they knew what kryptonite was
Mm-hmm.
in this story.
We meet Dr. Iron shows back up again as Steel to help out the battle, and then Superman gets a lead suit on. and this is where Dr. Irons later goes on to do his own thing. We see him, but they find the piece after the Battle of the Kryptonite and hang on to it, delivering it back to Lex. But we learn how Lex was able to get his own piece with a sleight of hand. And of course, Sam Lane's around to help each other out to stop Superman, because that's what Sam Lane does. And then we get another story, which is, I'm trying to, the font is weird. Ankelhella, Anchel. I can't read it. It's written by Max Landis. He was on a high there for a while, but it's this guy on an island who was exposed to some radiation.
Yeah, it is a radiation accident in a Star Labs experimental sub.
We see everything we see him on an island, and he's eating fruit, and then a jaguar comes and he opens his mouth and annihilates the jaguar, and then he starts just basically screaming and remembering stuff, and then pulls off his own face, and I guess it's kind of like the atomic skull.
That's what I thought.
And that's where I came at it. And it was just a very short, interesting story. And I almost wish I wonder if they did put out a print like we've talked about before with these, where they'll do an absolute. I almost wish if they would do a big volume like we did with Doomed, and we could read the entire Grant Morrison run as one thick chronological trade.
Mm.
All right. So now we're going to do the volume 3. And just a kind of a summary of volume 3, because let's see. 5 years ago, Clark moved to Metropolis alone, but hopeful. He donned a Superman t-shirt lined with a giant S, began one of his greatest heroes' career. Superman has grown with the city around him, and though he is feared by the public, there's no doubt they need him to protect him from the universe's gravest threat. But when the multiverse sends its deadliest villain against the Man of Steel, can he even turn them back? That's the summary on the app, but gosh, that is not because this is where we really get into Fifth Dimension. And man, this is where I learned that I am just not a Fifth Dimensional fan.
Yeah.
The backups, though, are great, but we're going to try to do this.
Like you said before, if you were trying to read this month to month as the issues would come out, that, I feel like this would be difficult to read. It is but as reading it as a trade, I really liked it put together.
So this is where we're going to get most of the understanding of the story. And I will say that I probably enjoyed trade 3 better than trade 2. Just because it all started to make more sense.
This is really where it started to build up. You got Vindictivix in trade 2. He was that little guy, and he was in every story. And he made a deal with a couple of people there, or at least showed up to a couple of people there. Because the only person he showed up to in the first one, I believe, was Glenn Morgan.
Yeah.
Then he showed up to a couple of people.
Was he the bartender?
In this one, was. Yes, he was. In this one, you get to see him. This is where you see him showing up to people like Zadu and K-Man, and a couple of others. But this is where they ultimately come together.
So let's talk about Zadu real quick here, because he's in the first story.
He's the first prisoner of the Phantom Zone.
The first prisoner of the Phantom Zone.
Yes, imprisoned by Jor-El and the Council of Krypton.
Good job, Jor-El. But so we see his story of him getting imprisoned.
Jor-El is like the MCU Tony Stark of Superman's world.
I mean, Jor-El definitely has a different, full take on here. But we see his story, as Clark is in the fortress. It's called Ghost in the Fortress of Solitude. And he's basically trying to escape. And Clark gets pulled in, and there's all kinds of other people that are in there as well. But the greatest person that's in there ever is, who is it, James?
In this story, I believe it is the Phantom Stranger.
Yes. Oh, alongside Crypto, the wolf dog.
The Kryptonian Guard Hound, I think, is what they called it. Krypton
Yeah.
Guard Hound.
Yeah, he's awesome. Like the way they do him in this is sweet.
Oh yeah. And this is one of those little things too that you get like a tiny mention early on in like the first trade, and then you get a couple of stories here, this story and a backup that really flesh it out.
Yeah. So the Phantom Stranger, of course, was a big deal for Dan DiDio at this time, and he never really got to finish it out of who he is and his whole story. There's a one line in here that kind of alludes to something, but I'm looking for it. I'm pretty sure it's in this one, but yeah, a foolish man who walks an endless road, a man who took the silver and betrayed the gold. Now I try to put things right. You must go, Superman. Zadu is insane and the world is ill prepared. So Superman gets out of the Phantom Zone. And so does Crypto. And then at the end, we get...
Yeah, he uses Zadu's ecto suit to be able to grab Crypto and pull him through the portal out of the Phantom Zone.
It is a great story with Crypto. The next one, we see at the end, though, Vindicavix, like with different people that he's collecting. You want revenge, so let's make a deal. He's making deals with people.
Yeah, at this point, he's got what appears to be Susie and Nimrod.
So the next one's called Mission to Mars. And to sum it up, this is where the metallics were on Mars. They're eating metal, and Superman helps the astronauts who were there on what's basically happening.
Terraforming colony.
Yeah, so this is the future. And then they say that they're being attacked by something, that the metallics had fled their planet from something else. And he's like, they look like angels. So basically, Superman battles these vampire demon looking angel beings on Mars. And this is where I'm reading this like, oh, what is going on with this story? But there inside, as one of the astronauts, is Vindicavix. And then he basically melts everybody there and then reveals himself in his true form. It's like a devil-looking, three-faced, four-armed person. But then we get into the next story. Now, this is where it gets even more interesting if you look at this compared to what we learned later in Doomsday Clock. But gotta love stories. But we see Clark's getting ready for his prom, his senior prom with Lana. And there is, we'll just call him Vinny. I'm going to call him Vinny. Vinny getting his truck helped by Pa Kent.
That works. I like that, Vinny. Vindictivix.
Yeah, I'm so like stuffed up. I'm like, I can't talk. And then we cut back and it's Nixley talking to Superman, but it's like in the future because he's got his full costume. And then she talks about wanting to take his white t-shirt as a souvenir, and she's telling him the story. And then it jumps to a battle in the future where we see the Hunter, we see the Metallics, and we see Susie. And then we're back to Clark on the roof with Nixley. And this is where she really opens up and starts talking about the story about Mixer and Mrs. Pedalic versus Vinny, Mixie and Vinny, how the king could never laugh and have a Mixie pulled out this universe and wowed everyone. And the princess, which is her, fell in love with Mixie. And then we learned that fifth dimensional words come out like thunder because Clark's ear is bleeding. But how Vinny was angry. So
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Vinny wanted revenge. And Superman says, "How do I get involved?" And she's like, "You were Mixie's favorite, Trick, and the King's, the one who tricked back. You outsmarted Mixie every time." And this is where she says, he says, "I don't remember outsmarting anyone called Mixie." And she says, "You will. For me, it was the past. For you, it's the future and still to come." And then we're seeing, Clark battling that battle. And we're getting more of the story of how Vinny's attacks and everything backfired and actually killed the king. And then he tried to blame it on Mixie. And then we get to Clark dancing with Lana, who's redheaded. Just want to throw that out there. Comics, great. Redheaded Lana. And right before he goes to kiss her, the police show up. And he says, "It's Ma and Pa." And that's when they had the car wreck with their car that was damaged, that failed, and they hit a tree. Nixie talks about how she escaped to Earth, the fourth dimension, our dimension. And, basically took on the form of a baby and was born. Then she gets shot in the head, and her blood goes all over his t-shirt that she was holding. And there's Vinny. And then we get the last panel is him holding her, him holding Clark, holding Lana, and then him where he is in the battle. So that doesn't rack your brain.
I think this is like the most confusing issue until you get to the later part that ties it all together.
And then the next issue is where the Legion comes back, and we have the second death of Superman, where he's fighting Zadu, and we have Lois and Jimmy there talking about it. And then the sky is red, and there's Vinny shows up in his devil form. And I guess we get the best look of it when it looks like he's holding the entire planet. But then he appears as the regular person, telling everyone that if they help Superman, they will be in danger. And then Krypto shows up, and both Krypto and Superman get wrapped in kryptonite chain. And then we jump back to like Lex from earlier. And then we get that he's working on that project of the Tulpa Superman.
Yeah.
That we saw earlier. And then he appears. And like I said, this is so hard to explain, but
yeah.
Because the next issue is him back on the farm with being there at the crash site, and Ma dies, Pa's in the hospital and asks to die at the farm, and Clark takes him to the farm. And then Jonathan's dying words are him to be, never give up the fight to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
And then we see their graves.
These stories are told at the points in his, at this point, the stories are being told at the points in his life where Vindictivix hurt and changed things for Clark. So at this point, it's where Vindictivix is like responsible for the death of the Kents on their way to like pick him up from the prom. And then you've got the future where the sky is red, he's losing his powers and he's being attacked by everybody. Nimrod and people infused with different forms of kryptonite. And you get the Tulpa Superman happening. So yeah, all these issues are told from multiple points in time. And that's why they're very difficult to really speak on.
I'm trying to give like a good overview. Like, I highly recommend everyone go and just read it for themselves, because then we see then we get flashes of, human looking small Vinny at different parts of the stories that we had read in the first volume of Superman. Like we see the kid take Superman's cape and him standing in the back where he says, I need an army of Superman haters. And then when he sees throughout time people that hate Superman and he starts to gather them. And then we're back to the battle with the Tulpa and the Legion are there. And then the Tulpa's face breaks and he's very doomsday like. He has a doomsday style face. And then, of course, then Lex shows up in an armored suit to help save the day. And it's called Superman's Last Stand.
Yeah. And the Legion are here to wake up Nixley's husband. Ultimately,
Yes.
wake up Mixus Spitaleg
From a coma.
from a coma.
And then we have their son that shows up with the T-shirt that has the blood of Nixley on it. And then basically we have Adam show up with the combateers, and they actually are there to help, which was interesting to say the least. And then we basically then Superman, throws the Tulpa Superman basically like a statue into space. And then all of a sudden we cut back to now we're in the fifth dimension. And the artwork is great in the fifth dimension. It's very playful. And
Well,
basically
before that, did you get to how like because this is how he kind of like defeated Vindictivix here, talking about he can't make him say his name backwards, but 5D words are like thunder. If everyone speaks all of us at once, you feel it, and we only have to do the impossible once. So him and everybody around the world speak their names backwards. They think their names backwards.
Yeah,
and it ultimately gets him and his child the piece of him that Mixie took, which we'll actually see that part come up later, to say his name backwards. And that's how he says his name backwards. And that's how the armor self-destruct engage doomsday mode. And that's when it becomes like a statue that he takes and flies it out to the dark, to past the moon for it to blow up.
That's why it takes me and James reading this. And then we get like the story of the king and Mixie and Nixley and their story, and how they have a daughter. And then we get, Jarrell and with Cal, and then we get this, and I screenshotted this. I'm gonna bring this up.
Let me see.
Because this is like this panel always, when I reread this, through me, because there's the red and there's the blue, and we're dealing with the fifth dimension, which I'm like, that's like a hardcore pretty much foreshadow of what we get in Rebirth with where Mixie, he's battling Mixie again and puts the two energies back together. So
yeah,
he says
what's really,
because this is he says, am I hallucinating, Mrs. Nixley? You were dead. The fifth dimension owes you a great debt, Superman. So we won, and I still have one wish, but the rules say it has to involve the color red. He broke your life. You'll never know what you lost, Clark. You'll never have what you had unless I'll stick with what I have now, he says to her. Does a red planet count? So Nixie had 3 wishes. We learn. One was what brought her to Earth. One was when she basically made it so that Clark Kent never died, and
Yeah.
everyone forgot that. And then she uses the third one to save the Red Planet in the future. And then back to the modern time, we see Clark talking to
Well,
Lois. What I
pause
missed.
right there before
Yep.
you move ahead. Oh, it's not something that you miss. It's something that I'm curious about. So we've got this
Yeah.
page with Jor-El and Lara and baby Kal-El. And in these elaborate involutions do the iterative life cycles of fifth dimensional archetypes proceed without end or beginning. Like, so is the fifth dimension something that people on Krypton um knew of and were aware of? Like, is this some sort of like early education type thing or something? Like, did he come into contact with the fifth dimension as a baby on Krypton long before he ever did on Earth? I'm just curious.
Maybe.
Like, you know what I
Maybe.
mean? Like, it's
Yep.
very interesting because this page is really out of nowhere, but I kind of like that as an idea,
It's kind of how the story is. So,
right?
but the trade officially ends with Clark calling Lois. And this is his first time interacting with Lois since supposedly he was supposed to be dead. And she says, "Answer the phone, Kent. Prove me wrong." And he says, "Clark." He says, "Hey, what did I miss? I was chasing a story, got into a brawl. You sure that's okay? I'm fine, seriously, but you should see the other guy." And it's Clark as Superman getting his face licked by Krypto, the wolf dog.
Yeah.
And then we go to the backups.
Because I like that it's Superman's turns up. It's don't forget Clark. There's something here they said that they could hear Clark's voice in that where everybody thought their names. Not sure where that was, but that was just something that it goes along with this time of him, because in the present day is when he died.
Yeah.
And then Nixley brought him back. So it is just interesting. So it is probably one of those dialogue bits that I missed, but it fits right here with this time. Because she's even saying his name backwards on the page.
It's intense for sure.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of my favorite backups right here. The boy and his dog, and talks about how Jor-El was making Krypto. And he says, "The imprinted strand will create an unbreakable bond. Helix intertwined complete. Success. Well, we shall see in a moment, my dear." And then it says, "Once upon a time, there was a boy and his dog." And like it tells us this overarching narrative of how, what's his face was trying to escape from the Phantom Zone, and Krypto jumped in, saved Clark, and got pulled into the Phantom Zone. But then we see like all the him escaping Krypton and everything, and how the Phantom of Krypto has always been with him. Shows Krypto there at the Kent's graves.
Yeah, this is part of the story we saw earlier where Zadu fought and Krypto saved everybody and got pulled into the Phantom Zone. And yeah, Krypto follows Kal-El across the stars to Earth, and he's always by his side, even in the Phantom Zone.
And the best, like we see him leaving the Kent farm, moving into his apartment. And then the best is when a homeless guy walks by. It's like, "There's a ghost watching over you. There's a white dog." And then Clark just looks at the guy, and we see Krypto looking like, "Arr." I almost wish
that's
that was
that's a panel from like the first volume.
Yeah, exactly. But it's what's so great about how the story works if you read it all together. I almost wish that homeless dude was like Constantine or something. But it says, "As the boy grew, embarking on the adventures the boys would have, the dog was always by his side, doing his best." And then we see Clark like sleeping, and there's Krypto right next to him. So I like that one. The next one, Starlight, Starbright, you can do that one.
So this one here, we've got Superman's fighting with the Justice League and against an alien army out to dominate the world with a lethal arsenal of extra dimensional weapons. I just like that with Cyborg saying that. But they send Superman flies off. He goes to a um, natural history's Hayden Planetarium. He goes here every day, every 382 days, I believe was the number, for a certain cycle, and they are using all of the telescopes, 100 telescopes positioned to collect data, so that way, theoretically, with Superman, he can piece together the image of Krypton from there. And at this point in time, 27 light years, which would be 27 years later, he is there and sees Krypton on the eve of its destruction. So he actually sees Krypton die. So the idea of light just reaching Earth from 27 light years away, he sees the moment that Krypton explodes.
It's intense.
Yeah. It's
It's
a really cool story, I
It
think.
is.
And they have Neil deGrasse Tyson
Yeah,
in the story. He's
of
in the
course.
book. So I that was pretty cool, just kind of like pulling the real world into it a little bit.
It says the
Um,
planet Krypton has been gone for years, but as for Superman is concerned, tonight is the night Krypton died.
you know,
The next one is for my next trick, and that is really where we get the biggest story about Mr. and Mrs. Piglet falling in love um, with who would be Nixley. Her name's a lot longer. I'm not even going to attempt it. Um, but then when Vinny attacks, how they escape. There was a three-dimensional couple who lived an ordinary life. They stayed connected even when it felt like they were worlds apart. They made a home. They went to work. And though they knew nothing lasts forever, they supported each other in sickness and in health. Until finally, in time, once there was a baby made of music. Clearly, strong melody of pure joy. And he says, my greatest trick of all. Once there was a princess aged by regret and sorrow. And like we see kind of pictures of like their fifth dimension and then their life on the 2 dimension or 3 dimension. Legion of Superheroes issue. It was okay. I don't know.
So the Legion of Superheroes, what they were doing in this story was they were trying to prevent somebody called Universo from coming into power. And this is the story of when I think Universo ended up coming into power. Not exactly sure how it connects or plays out within the New 52 or anything, but I believe this is the story of how Universo ultimately comes into power. They save him. They save his life. They rescue him. When a Naltorian, Nia Nal's peoples,
Yeah.
has a vision of the future and says that he's going to destroy everything, and they save his life. But he ends up transforming into himself and tells his driver to kill himself after he drops him off, so that way nobody is aware of who he is.
Dum dum dum. The next story, Goodbye, I like because I like the structure. You have 6 panels split into 2. And it's back to Clark going to prom, but it's also him battling that we saw earlier. The different battles that he was having across time. And he's sitting there talking to his pa on the porch. And, Pa says, none of us can know what the future will bring, Clark. The important thing is, and then he says, Clark, is that you? And it's Clark from the future in his Superman suit. And basically he gets to say, a kind of goodbye to his dad. And during the conversation, Jonathan makes the thing that we won't be around to see it. And he says, I never thought I'd live forever. And he talks about how time, the way what's going on, time's kind of unfolding and hitting each other. And he gets this moment to say goodbye. He says, thank you for everything, Pa. I love you. And then all of a sudden they're hugging, and it's back to the time frame right before Clark heads out to prom.
Right. Well, he says he's all grown up. I mean, he doesn't know how far in the future, and he doesn't give him a time frame of how far in the future either. But he does get to see him literally on his father's last night.
Yeah. And then
what he didn't get to say goodbye, because that's when he died.
The next one is called Never Ending Battle, and I love this one. Very few words, but it's all pictures. They're in the Noah D. Random Museum of our Terran Heritage. And we see the museum, and we see a statue of Martin Luther King, a Buddha, and we have these different like alien school kids, and they throw this one kid down. This dude's wearing this shirt that looks almost like a W symbol on it.
Yeah.
And then the other kids, look at him, and they're kind of like heads down as they're bullying this one kid. And this green child, we see, he walks to the side, he goes in, and he activates the Superman wing. And it has all these great quotes of like, faster than a speeding bullet, Doom Planet, look up in the sky. And he's walking through, and it's telling his story. We just see these like glimpses of stories that we've seen of like Man of Steel, Man of Tomorrow, Last Son of Krypton, Try Again, Doc, Hala, Kal-El, More Powerful Than a Pounding Surf, You've Got Me, Who's Got You, Long Live the Legion, It Tickles, Neil. And then the other kids come walking through, and they're seeing the story. And then there are too many innocents in jeopardy right now. It's up to me. And you see the kid with the green holding his head up high comes walking out and stands in front of that bully. And then the other kids come out too, and are all standing there and staring the bully down. And then he walks off. And then the green kid, walks back in, and it says, fighting a never-ending battle for truth, justice, and the American way. But then the statue of Superman kind of like winks at him.
Yeah, right.
And that's the last story. I think that's such a great story to go out on.
Yeah, it was definitely a great story to go out on the trade with.
So we did it as best we could. We probably missed some stuff, but it's a lot to process.
Yeah, you really have to go in and read some of the Grant Morrison stuff yourself.
You got to read all three trades in one sitting, and then reread them again, and you'll be like, yes.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Or reread all of the issues, and then read all of the trades.
Yeah.
All of it like back to back to back, like
high concept.
And you might be able to piece it all together. It looks like the Always Sunny board that Charlie's standing in front of with all the. You're on mute.
Yes, it does.
You're talking to Stella. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good. Kids are getting rambunctious, but yeah, it does look like the board, like you need it. But we did it. Let us know your thoughts. We'll be back. Check out our YouTube, Krypton Report YouTube, for our Batman Day specials. And have a beautiful day as James and I go about. Oh, look at Solomon dressed to impress with that Superman shirt.
Yeah.
Nice.
Good job, Solomon. Way to get dressed like a good kid.
Yeah.
All right. Take care. Remember,